And now in this one it's quite hard, so it's going to pull down in this direction here. This one, very hard, but still connecting back into the path of action there. And again, you can stretch it a little bit if you want to. Here's my impact point. So I'm going to pull the tail down a little bit here, but I've got to curl it back up into the line of action there. And here's where I reverse it. Again, find the center line on the belly here so that I know exactly where the tip of the tail is going to come out. That's the volume of the tail there. Go around like this. Again, following the path of action. And now it's almost reaching its high point again. Be mindful of what your drawings are. 23 is my high point, so I want to start to pull the tail out just a little bit. Let the energy get released off of it. High point is here, so I'm going to pull the tail out to here. And now it's beginning to drop. So I'm going to reverse my curve here, turn it into an S curve. And the downward action here. Continue my S curve, get that tip of the tail to go up a little bit higher. And then drag. It's still following the line of action. And then my hard pull down, following the line of action. Into my That's my impact point, so now it's curling and reversing, so I find my center line, contact point, curl back up and into the path of action here. Volume on the outside, the far side, volume on the inside. It might have a little bit of a crease here on the tail now. A little bit more of a fold. Even if I wanted to, I could put a little bit of a flat edge right here, just to indicate that it's actually contacting on the surface there. And then I'll finish off the rest later on. So let's take a look at what this looks like now if I flip it. Okay, so the upper torso is fairly balanced on there. The tail's doing all the flipping, the overlapping action on it. So there's just the squish and stretch on that upper part. So let me show you, if we take this now and I continue on with the same idea of what I was originally planning on doing with the dragging character. If I put another ball on top of that and connect it to his neck, how would that go? So in this stretch position here, I'd have his neck coming out of here, and we'd be pulling in this direction. We probably wouldn't see a lot of that ball, but I would add it up here to that point there. Here I'd see it more, so I'd connect my neck. That's where your center line comes into play, because I'm just drawing a little ellipse here to show the contact point for it. So I'm going to stretch the neck up like that, put the head on here. Set these off to the side. Okay, now on this drawing here, again, we're going to do the delayed action. So in this part here is squishing, this part here is impacting, this part here is still stretching. So therefore, the neck here will also be stretching because it's still coming after. So it's not being affected by it. But on the next drawing now, as this part starts to go up, here's where we really violently change this, because now this part is pushing up, squishing the ball that's on top, but his neck now and his head are going to continue to go down. So this drawing here, this part here is still moving in this direction here. Everything else goes up. So what we'll do is we'll continue this head down to here, like this. Okay, and the neck will pull over in this direction like this. So the neck now acts like the tail, where it's dragging, and we're just sticking the head on top of it, like that. So now with this one, as it goes up, we're going to continue to drag that neck down. So his neck will be pulling over this way, like this, and his head will be down like this. And here's where we come up, so we're going to start to release that head and let it start to catch up, but not, a lot. So we're just going to pull it over this way now. But it's still being pulled, so the angle of the head, you can see what I did here with the angle of it. See how it's pointing in this direction here? That's the major axis line going through it. So now I've tilted it this way, so it's getting a pull. And later I'll go back and I'll show you what the beak line would be if I put a beak on him. So in this one here, I'm continuing that pull, so I'm going to change the angle so it's coming down like this, like that. Now here we're coming up to our high point, so we're going to start to release that energy some more, start to curl the head up here, still dragging the head on that angle, keeping that angle going like this. So here's where the body is easing into its high point. Continue to pull this up now, but we're thinking in terms of slow in, slow out. So you can see that my distances that I'm doing here are easing into a high point. And I'm going to start to rotate the head here. So here's where the ball has reached its highest point, but I don't want to quite get the neck into its high point, but I am going to do a little reversal here, just a slight little reversal there, and curl this part here. So the head is still going up, sort of running out of space here. So if let's say I do want to continue this on and get the entire picture, what I would do is I would tape on the back or glue on an extra sheet of paper here, just so I can draw the characters fully up there. Or I would trace it off onto animation size paper. Because when I originally drew the single ball bounce, I wasn't thinking in terms of this being a dragon at that point. I was just figuring I'm going to have 2 balls on here. I wasn't thinking of 3 balls. So now, here's where the ball is starting to come down. So I'm going to reverse the curve here. And get the head to settle just a little bit back. And the body begins to come down. Oops, sorry. Playing footsies there. It's okay. So now, this is where I'm going to freeze my head out here. So I'm just going to trace back the position on that head there so it holds in that position. And it's starting to get a stretch. And then the next one was where I stretched out my body. So once again, I'm going to freeze my head out here. Just let it hover in that up high position there. So if it stays up there, what has to happen is the neck is going to have to start to stretch. now I'm going to start to catch up the head, but I'm going to ease out of that position here. So if I'm in this position here, I want to come down just a little bit, but not a lot. And I'm going to keep the head tilted back. Getting lots of stretch on the neck here. And now start to reel it in. So I don't want the neck to be too long here. And I'm going to show you a little trick here in just a few seconds as we get to this point here. So here's my neck. That's pretty stretched, right? That's quite violently stretched. So what I might want to do on this one in between here is do what's called a strobe, where I put in multiple heads to fill in the space so it doesn't look like it's being too stretched out. So anytime you've got a very large space that has to be covered by a small number of drawings, in this instance here, one drawing, I want to fill that up with what's called a strobe or a smear, where you actually stretch the character out in order to fill the space. Now once again, as the head comes down, it's going to overlap, so it's being pulled here down to this position here. And by doing this, what I'm doing is I'm creating a rubber band type of a feel, where you stretch the rubber band out completely in this one here, and then it begins to contract on the next drawing. Even though the other part of the body here is still stretching, I'm starting to pull that down so that the overlapping action isn't quite as violent in this next drawing. So once again, 19 to 20, I think I am going to have to go back and drop in a single drawing in between, because that's a big difference there between those two, especially with what I'm going to do with the neck now, because I've got to have the neck contacted there, and this is where the head has to go down, whoo, like this, way down there. Okay, so I'm going to drag the head this way, because it's going to follow this line through here, boing, like that, and then it's got to start to catch up in this drawing here. So that's a pretty violent action that I'm doing between here and here. Here's an instance where I would need a strobe as an in-between here, because see the direction of the neck in this drawing here? It's going up this way, and in this drawing here, it's almost going 180 degrees in the opposite direction. So I'm having something facing this way, and then boink, all of a sudden it's over here. That's too big a gap to have something move from there to there without an in-between. And so what I do is I put a strobe as an in-between in that one in order to fill in that blank space. Okay? Actually, I can show you how that looks. Can I borrow a piece of paper? Oh, anybody have a punch sheet of paper? Thank you. So my in-between for this one would start off with the bottom. I'm going to figure out where that's going. So it's compressing this part here. The tail. Fall through like this. And so my neck now would have to go from this position here, which is up here, to this position here, which is over here. So I've got to fill in that space between those two with essentially a bunch of lines that look like this, and get my head to go from here down to here, and so I'd fill that in with my multiple heads. So it creates that type of a feel, the in-between. Okay? So that would just be shot for one frame to fill in that blank space. So it wouldn't be a big gap. All right? So if you go onto the website and you look at the second semester assignment called the double take, you'll see examples of different types of smears and strobes and that type of thing from various Warner Brothers cartoons and how they dealt with those types of actions. So now on the way back up, I'm going to get the head to drag. that. And because the bounce is much less here, I'm not going to have as violent a recovery on this. So I'm going to begin to curl this up. My high point here. This will not be the high point of the head. Remember, with the overlapping action,